Ring in the Midwest. Tractors and tornado sirens are about the only sounds you hear outside this time of year. And what do you think on that time lapse? Was that a dissipating funnel that I pointed out? Hard to say. Let's get to work on the truck. I'm getting ready to mount my oil pressure sending unit. And I talked in a previous video that there is a spot behind the power steering pump near the oil filter that there's a oil pressure switch that Ford has there that turns on an idiot light if the oil pressure gets below a certain range. It doesn't provide a signal for a gauge, whereas this sending unit does. Now I thought about taking that out, putting this in, but the area that it's in is a very tight space, and it could be done. I could run a hose out, like a braided steel hose to this thing and have it tucked up somewhere. But then I'd need a T-fitting for the oil pressure switch, just so it's not throwing another code and messing with the ECU. I decided I'm not going to mess with it. I'm going to mount this on the back side of the passenger side head. There is an oil galley there with a plug. Just pop that thing out and then this guy back in. It might not be as 100% accurate as it would be down in the spot near the oil filter where the oil pump actually is. But I'm not racing the thing. I'm not, this is a cruiser. So all I want to see is that I have oil pressure, and I feel like it'd be just as good to know that I have it in the heads at least. But it'll be pretty accurate. It won't be 100%, but it'll be close. So as you might be able to see, I actually do have a ton of room back here to work with. Let me get that power cord out of the way. And right here is that little plug. That's where I'll be mounting my sending unit. Yeah, I knew that was gonna happen. You get a little bit of oil come out, but that's what they make oil dry for. Took a little adapting, but I got it in there. Already ran the ground wire, and then all I need to do is hook up the signal wire, and I'll have oil pressure. Now again, this won't give you 100% accurate oil pressure, which I didn't really need. I just want to know that it's there, and that at least it's making it to the top of the engine. Getting ready to install the evaporator. They have you take out the glove box, and then remove the dash support bar that goes there, and then also fill in that kick panel area where it lets air in for the vent. For those of you that have worked on the heating system of the F100 probably are familiar with these defrost ducts. They're like some kind of cardboard of some sort. What so often happens to them is they get old, they break. Well, they come apart. It's basically cardboard. They don't reproduce these, or at least not that I'm aware of. I looked everywhere to find them. But Vintage Air has little plastic ones. I wonder if you guys that aren't buying AC systems but want to repair that area, I wonder if Vintage Air would sell you these. They fit right over the defrost grills and would hold on to a heater hose. Might be worth a shot. Ran my hoses through the kick panel there, the little plate that they provided. The hoses will run up here. I'm gonna go under for the number 10 line. The dryer will sit up under that lip there. Getting the unit prepped for a test fit here. Pretty slick. I had to order an extra AC hose, so got a little temporary delay for the air conditioning system, but I figured I'd tackle this rust through spot here and get that all patched up. So I got the area cut out, and you can see what we're dealing with here is where the back of the cab joins the bed, and it's quite rusty right here. What we need to do is remove this rust. If you don't cut out the rust, then it's just going to breed more rust. So I'm going to try to get it down to bare metal and then pour 15 over it. It's a product called Pour 15. It's really good stuff. Try to get that down, get that covered, and try to stop this rust. That Pour 15 will encapsulate the rust and keep it from growing. But hopefully we can just get it down to bare metal, remove all this rust, pour 15 over it, be good to go. All right, I've now treated the rust behind it, removed all the rust I could, and then encapsulated it. And now I'm just making the template to fill the hole. And I just take a piece of tape, make a little handle, and then just keep test fitting until you get it the perfect size. Then you can trace this out on some sheet metal, and then you'll have your piece to weld into there. Got my little patch cut out, and here's a tip I like to use. These magnets that we have for getting bolts, dropped bolts out in the engine bay, and, you know, lost bolts, screws, whatever. Works really well for test fitting while you're grinding, you know, down to the correct size. So that's a little tip. And when welding an area, well, really welding any sheet metal, especially body panels, you want to keep the area cool so you won't get warping. This one's not so critical because I've got a bunch of spot welds here from where it meets the bed in the back of the cab, but better safe than sorry. It's less work you'll have to do later to get all this to lay even. From here we'll just be, sorry that's loud. Okay, from here we'll just be working side to side and just kind of keeping the area as cool as we can.
Later that night.
Okay, so it's welded in. From here I'll just grind it down. Kind of doing the same thing with grinding. You can impart a lot of heat into the panel. So just go a little bit at a time, take breaks, cool it off with the air hose. You can use water too, a rag and some water. I've done that too, but that can, you know, with bare steel, you usually want to keep moisture away from it, and the air hose has always worked fine for me. So, time to grind those flat. Alright, the rust through spot has been repaired. There's a little low spot on the right side of it. That's actually from one of the old spot welds. Just a light little skim coat of filler, and that'll level everything out. And any high spots you might have left over, you can knock those down with a auto body hammer. They look like this. They work well. Vintage Air sent me a universal hose kit for this because the F100 hoses, the pre-crimped hoses, wouldn't work for this because I don't have a stock or a standard, you know, V8 that they use in the F100, or, you know, some kind of 350 or 351 Windsor or something. It's, you know, the Crown Vic. So they sent me a universal hose kit, which means I need to get them crimped. I went to just about every AC service store in Des Moines. They wouldn't do it. They were willing to sell me their hose and their fitting, and then they'd crimp it. And they said it's for reasons that every type of fitting has a different type of pressure that it needs. They're probably right. But I already had all these hoses and already had all these fittings, and everywhere I went, they turned me away. So driving on my way home, I got passed by a semi, and I was looking at the back of the semi. There's hoses hanging all over that thing. So I figured I'd stop into a local semi garage. And so I did, and I asked them, hey, are you willing to crimp my hoses? They're Parker hoses. And he said, sure, I'll crimp them. So he did. He crimped them. and crimped all my hoses. Vintage Air has a little spec sheet that they send with the universal hose kit, which will tell the guy crimping the hose everything he needs to know about what type of dye to use. So the guy crimped all my hoses, and I asked him, well, how much do I owe you? And he said, don't worry about it, just bring the truck by when you're done, I want to see it. I threw him 20 bucks anyways, but if you have trouble finding a place to crimp your hoses, maybe try a semi repair shop, or you can just send them back to Vintage Air and they'll crimp them for you. But I'm just impatient and was wanting to try to get it done in town. I've got all the hoses in the front connected to the compressor and the dryer. I'm not worried about this area because my inner fender well is cut kind of in this area. And then running them in through that area of the firewall, in through this, what was a vent panel. It now has a block-off plate for the hoses to come through to connect to the evaporator unit. It's finally time to remove this temporary bar that I have here that holds up the column just for mock-up and install. It's a Flaming River 0 drop, or I guess that'd be like 1/4 inch drop, because there's a little, in here there's a little mount. So I'm just gonna bend that down a little bit to the angle and then mount that to it to hold the column in. Because the AC thing there, it hits right in here and won't let it mount, so been meaning to get on it for a long time anyways. I've got the steering column mounted with the Flaming River mount here, and it wasn't too bad. There's a piece of metal that runs behind, sorry about the angle here, that runs behind the dash. I just bent it down and bolted to it. And then from there, I'm going to run some supports, weld some supports from that to the top of the dash. But I'll do that after I run my AC and heater hoses, just to make sure won't be any interference with the mounts and the hoses and such. So I got my heater hoses connected and the heater control valve. And since these hoses come off of the engine in kind of an unconventional way, from the back and then up and over, it's going to hit the battery tray, the support leg for the battery tray here. So I'm going to need to trim this out. Then I've got some scrap angle iron there that I will just weld to the back and then along the bottom. I mean, it's still going to retain a good amount of support from up here and over there. So the support is now welded on there, and I'm going to grind and sand this area real smooth. The hoses aren't going to be touching it, but with any bumps and rattles and stuff, I don't want it slicing into those heater hoses. If you're wondering what these welds are, this is probably from 5-6 years ago or so. When I bought my very first welder, Harbor Freight, I used just some angle iron to run practice beads. They're not pretty, but I was learning. Okay, battery tray is in. The hoses aren't kinked or anything, so good to go. There's some talk about me doing power tour. Actually, I was talking about doing power tour, but I got my gauges, and they needed some work. There's some custom art that went on them, and they came back just not quite up to snuff, a little off center and everything, but they're taking care of it. I had to send them back. They're taking care of the problem. Great customer service from Speed Hut. I know this is just an oversight. I hear great things about Speed Hut, so I think this was just somehow this one got by them. So I didn't want to do power tour without gauges, without knowing what's going on with the engine and everything. I debated using the Vic gauges, just wire tied in there, but I just figured, nah, just wait till it's done right. So I took the time, I slowed down. As you noticed, I didn't put a video out for a while. I just wanted to hang with the family and just kind of get away from the truck for a little bit. Not that I was not enjoying it. Sometimes, you walk away, you hit the reset button, you come back even harder and more passionate about it. So, and that's what happened. I've got a few messages too saying that I'm going the expensive route. I could have done this for a lot cheaper, and I'm fully aware of that. I know there's a way to use the Vic AC. People use the Vic dash and the Vic gauges and everything. For me, the goal was to keep the interior stock looking, 1961, as much as I possibly could. So, even though I'm using aftermarket gauges, I mean, it's not the Vic gauges, which I never was crazy about. And yes, if I would have gone that route, the truck would have been done by now and for less money. But I feel like if I was to use the Vic dash and the Vic gauges and everything, every time I drove it, I just would wish that I had done it this way. And I'm not talking bad about the guys that are using the Vic dashes and the gauges and stuff and the Vic seats. That's not my intention at all. It's just, for me, I just wanted to do it this way. All right, that's gonna do it for me this time, guys. Thanks so much for watching. Next video, we'll button up the AC, get all the interior AC stuff done. The front end will be going on for the very last time. Fenders, core support, grill. We'll be putting the carpet in and the doors on, and it's gonna be getting close. Thanks as always, and I'll see you next time.